Hello, welcome back. We are at Genesis chapter 28. One of the things I'm going to do, or I'm doing now in May, because by the time you're watching this, I've already done it, but I'm going to start releasing videos every weekday in May. That way we can maybe finish up Genesis by the end of May, first part of June. The goal there is to get more of the Bible out there and to get it in a form that we can learn and dig deeper. Another thing I want to say is I'm not covering every aspect of every verse in every chapter. We would be here too long, uh, and I'm not capable of it. I don't have that kind of depth of knowledge. My goal is to get you excited about finding out more. I want each person who follows Christ, who wants to be obedient to Yeshua, that they will dig deeper, ask more questions of your pastor, of your leaders, of your friends and family. Let's study together. That's why in the first video of this whole project, I talk about I want us to question why we believe what we believe. And sometimes we're right. A lot of times we're right. Most of the Bible, I think, probably has been taught correctly, but some of it has not been. And that's our fault as pastors and leaders and Christians and God-fearers. We need to make sure we do a better job of that. So that's why you got this whole 2-minute rant by me. So let's jump into Genesis chapter 28. And I'm going to read this from the from the Complete Jewish Bible, because I think this also gets, some of the wording can get a little uh, misguided in the New Living Translation and some other translations. So let's jump right in. So Yitzhak called Yaakov, Isaac, and Jacob, and after blessing him, charged him, "You are not to choose a wife from the Hittite women. Go now to the home of Bethuel, your mother's father, and choose a wife there from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May El Shaddai bless you, make you fruitful, and increase your descendants until they become a whole assembly of peoples." And this is a really good verse to kind of dig out. An assembly of peoples is really the same word used for church in the New Testament, but an assembly is basically a group of people for whatever reason. I know I'm ranting a little bit today. Let's get focused. And let's see here. "And may he give you the blessing which he gave Abraham, you and your descendants with you, so that you will possess the land you will travel through, the land God gave to Abraham." So Isaac sent Yaakov away, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramah, the brother of Rivkah, Yaakov and Esau's mother. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Yaakov and sent him away to Padan Aram to choose a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he charged him, "You are not to choose a Canaan woman as your wife," and that Yaakov had listened to his father and mother and gone to Padan Haran. Esau also saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac, his father. So Esau went to Ishmael and took, in addition to the wives he already had, Machalat, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Naviot, to be his wife. Yaakov went out to Beersheba and traveled toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed the night there because the sun had set. He took a stone from the place, put it under his head, and lay down there to sleep. He dreamt that there before him was a ladder resting on the ground with its top reaching into heaven, and the angels of Adonai were going up and down. If you've ever heard of the ladder to heaven, that stairway to heaven, Led Zeppelin, they're not in the Bible, but this is where all that came from. Then suddenly Adonai was standing there next to him, and he said, "I am Adonai, the God of Abraham, your grandfather, and the God of Yitzhak. The land on which you are lying, I will give to you and your descendants." So let's jump over to the New Living Translation. I'll show you this really quick. New Living Translation, verse 13 says, "At the top of the stairway stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham. their grandfather Abraham and the God of your father Isaac. The ground you're lying on belongs to you. I'm giving it to you and your descendants. See, the ground he was laying on did not belong to him. It was God's land. He was allowing them to possess it. And I know it doesn't seem like that's a big deal, but as we move through the Bible, we're going to see that that really is a big deal for them to possess it, own it, versus just be on it. Those are two different things in God's eyes. So look, and also, the New Living Translation, we throw the Lord, he said at the top of the stairway stood the Lord. But yet when he's telling the story, Adonai, God, Yud-Heh-Vah, was standing right next to him. It's a strange translation. And it says, look, I'm with you. I will guard you wherever you go. I will bring you back into this land because I won't leave you until I've done what I have promised you. Yaakov awoke from his sleep and said, truly, Adonai is in this place, and I didn't know it. Then he became afraid and said, this place is fearsome. This has to be the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Yaakov got up early in the morning, took the stone he had put under his head, set it up as a standing stone, poured olive oil on its top, and named it Beit El, house of God. But the town had originally been called Luz. Yaakov took this vow, if God will be with me and guard me on this road that I am traveling, giving me bread to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return to my father's house in peace, then Adonai will be my God. And this stone, which I have set up standing stone, will be God's house, and of everything you give me, I will faithfully return 1/10 to you. So we get the tithe kind of principle. It gets dropped in there, but also we get the concept of, if he'll come with me. And remember, gods were thought to be territorial. There was the God of this area and the God of that area, and gods couldn't change areas. So not only were they territorial, but they were restricted by those territories. So when he says things like, if he will guard me and bring me back to this land, then I will acknowledge him as God. It's like if he's able to cross borders, then I want to know more about that. So we see what appears to be the same blessing God gave Abraham, but and Abraham gave to Isaac, being transferred to Jacob. But there's a little difference. Jacob will be the first to produce only Hebrews, people who would become God's precious treasure. So everyone that came from Jacob would be a Hebrew. God's pronouncing that in advance. So Esau takes an Ishmaelite as his third wife. So notice in the verses, he says, like, okay, this makes my parents mad. This makes my parents mad. This is what they told Jacob to do. I'm going to go down and do just the opposite of everything my parents said to do. I'm going to do it my way. Also known as relying on your own understanding. But also he was mad at mom and dad. So he's trying to do the opposite of everything they want to show them that anger. So he takes this wife. Here's an alliance of dispossessed, essentially, firstborns. They were the technically firstborns, and they've both been removed. So Ishmael and Esau form an alliance by him taking one of the wives from Ishmael, and they become a permanent anti-Israeli group, still to this day. It is this alliance that forms most of Islam and the Arabs and all of that. So Jacob leaves Beersheba and travels about 40 miles. He had to leave his land and his father, and all of that stuff for God to work with him, just like Abraham. So he was running for his life, though, because remember, he had just cheated Esau, and lied to his dad and deceived him. So he ran away. So this ladder between heaven and earth, it's a biblical type. So of what is to come. So the stairway represented the connection between man and God that was broken. In the beginning, man could come to God because God was present. He was in the garden. Adam and Eve could just walk right up to him and talk to him. But rebellion broke that connection. But for those who trust, there is a ladder. And it's a connection to Jesus, to the Messiah. Another connection would come that we'll see coming up in the wilderness tabernacle. It will show a connection to that ladder. But and then in the future, the real ladder will come, the one who will reconnect man with God, Yeshua, Christ. He'll come and make that permanent connection. So Jesus says in John 1:51, it says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you shall see heavens open and the angels of God ascending and descending from the Son of Man, upon the Son of Man." Sorry. So he is literally that ladder, is what he's saying. Without seeing what is happening with Jacob, how do we understand this statement? That Yeshua is our ladder, the only ladder that's going to reconnect us. So when you go through the Old Testament, you see these shadows, these types, these prophetic kind of words that say, hey, when this happens, this is what it's talking about. So we have Jacob resting on a rock and then anointing it. I think there's a link between the Messiah saying he's the anointed one, and also he is the rock, all referred back to this event. Because remember, when Yeshua is talking to the Jews in the Holy Land, they know these stories. This is as common as, when you're growing up in Texas and you know about the Alamo, or you know about, the Revolutionary War or whatever. They all knew these things. So these references he was making to rocks and anointing and ladders, he was making connections for them. It doesn't work the same way with us because we don't know the Old Testament. So we just think he came up with this analogy because it was really good. What we want to do is study the Old Testament so we know what we're talking about here and what he's talking about, even more importantly. We also see at the end the principle of the tithe, kind of like we talked about, and we'll expand on that more as we kind of go along. I will say this: the tithe is only one offering that we're supposed to give. So the tithe is not the complete requirement for us. So I'll throw that out there. We can argue about that later on as we get further into Leviticus and Numbers. But God bless you all. I hope you're enjoying this. Like I said, in May, we'll start kind of turning out a few more videos to kind of get this going. I'm glad I'm being asked to do more and not being told to just stop and move on. So remember, love God, love people, and go change the world. That's our goal. God bless.